Welcome to another episode of GQ Speaks, your go-to platform for insightful conversations, captivating stories, and thought-provoking discussions. GQ is a series of experiences, and we're just making sense of that as we go along. That is what we're doing here, one conversation at a time. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into our episode.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So this is just a continuation on the presidential campaigns that happened at lunch hour in 0811. The Gazette will be doing a write-up on that. In case you missed it, please tune in to know more about their manifestos. So now we'll be answering all the questions that were sent to us by you. I have Kayan with me here and she will be starting. So Kayan, we will be doing this the same way that we did in the room. I will ask you all the questions and then we will have 1 minute for you to answer. Perfect?
Sounds great.
Thank you. Okay, I'll get right into it. So, Kayan, you have broadened accessibility to include both disability and general access. Can you explain why that's important? And they said the pantry as an example.
Sure. So I will talk about the pantry, but before I get into that, I want to highlight some forms of inspiration that led me to this issue and to the point where I had to include it in, as part of my 5-point manifesto. So I am taking a cross-registered course at Northwestern, and a classmate from there initially wanted to attend Georgetown. She's very much interested in the majors that we offer. However, she, as a wheelchair user, was not feeling comfortable enough and supported enough to fully enroll at Georgetown. And one thing that truly got to me was that she felt as though she was not supported to the point where she chose Northwestern over Georgetown. Of course, she's content with that decision now. However, that barred her from an original dream. And I think it's a duty as Georgetown students to include every single person, every single student, either current student, but also future student, to accommodate them to the point where they feel comfortable enough to be willing to integrate smoothly into our society. As for the pantry, I think removing pantry access from students is not necessarily fair, especially as a lot of students really rely on that as a form of support.
Thank you, Kayan. So the 1 minute is up. Thank you for answering that. All right. So as someone who's unfamiliar with your prior engagement at Georgetown, what do you hope to do differently as future SGA president if elected?
So I did talk about how I had a year's worth of class rep experience, a class representative experience at the SGA. Because I was a class rep, I had the opportunity to sort of stand back and watch how SGA functions. So I am familiar with the functionality aspect of SGA, but I also am aware of the shortfalls of the SGA. And so coming forward as the as the president of SGA, with this background in mind, I think will truly help me and truly benefit both myself as the potential president of SGA, but also the student body in general. And I think this will truly sort of help smoothen that transition that typically we don't really see because everybody has such, opposing ideas. So I think this is one thing that we can all really that we can all work towards. Yeah.
Thank you. The third question says, Kayan, people barely know you from your engagement. How are you going to bridge gaps?
That is a wonderful question. I actually beg to differ. I think a lot of people really know me because I am a very approachable, extroverted individual. I speak to strangers all the time, ask them how they're doing, how their day is going, how the semester is unfolding for them. So I think that is my campaign in itself, connecting with the student body. I don't necessarily believe in digital, reaching out digitally because that sort of takes away from that interaction. In fact, I don't use Instagram. I had to find out that SGA had an Instagram account, who sharing the campaigns of other individuals well after they started sharing. And I think that's sort of old school of me, but I think old school works best. And perhaps that is the lack that we see in the Student Government Association today.
Perfect. Thank you. And then for your last question, it says, students mostly do not know you until the town hall. So what other types of communication can you organize? So I think they mean by town hall, like the presidential debate that happened at 1 p.m.
And as for communication?
Yeah, it says here, what other types of communication can you organize?
Okay, so I think they're talking about how I connect with the student body. So as I mentioned earlier, talking one-on-one, I often visit the atrium, but also just around campus. If I see somebody, walking past me, I will ask them how their day is. Call me a white man if you will, but I think it's also very Arab of me to do so. And in addition to that, while I was class rep, one of my methods for reaching out to my class, my graduating batch, has been through polls. So I often, send out polls. How are you doing? Are you surviving? Are you barely surviving? And then I look at those who I actually I pay attention to both, but I prioritize those who aren't really doing so well, and I check up on them individually, either in person, but also digitally as well. But I would say that I am very old school and I rely more on interacting face to face. I just think it's more practical. You gain a true sense of how the person is doing, and there is no room for miscommunication that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kayan. So that is all of it for your question.
All right, thank you.
So next up, I have Ali Nasser with me, who's also from the class of 2026, and I will be asking his questions. Hi, Ali. So we'll do this the same way. I will give you 1 minute, and then I'll ask the second question. All right. So this question says, why has the South Asian Society been used as a platform for campaigning? Is it fair to utilize neutral cultural clubs like this?
Oh, okay. So, first of all, the South Asian Society was not the only one we reached out for endorsement, and I think that is the right of every candidate. Additionally, not only the South Asian Society, but the Filipino Club endorsed us as well. We reached out to various clubs. Some refused to endorse us, and some did. I don't think it's fair to frame it in a way where we're utilizing it, because yes, I was the vice president of the South Asian Society, but that is a question I think should be given to the current leadership of the South Asian Society, that why did they decide to endorse us in the first place? We have every right, and I think it's pretty fair for every candidate to reach out to clubs and ask for their endorsements.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then the second question says, your campaign has largely been dependent on criticism, particularly of the current SGA. Substantially speaking, what policies are you proposing forward?
Well, my manifesto is out there, and it is not as such critical of the SGA as much. The reason people might believe that is because we were only given 2 minutes to talk about what keeps us different, which I don't think is fair on any candidate. But the fact remains, my manifesto is out there if anyone wants to read it and has questions for me, which has been the case for the past few days where people have come up to me about my manifesto. So the policies for me are clear, which is one, there needs to be open transparency, right? It's not really an attack on the SGA. It's something that if I become president, I'm going to deal with differently. So that's a policy that I've talked about. Secondly is the concept of empowering the students. I think that is something I would represent as someone who no one really expected to run for president, but has the self-confidence to run, and then sort of spreading that self-confidence around the student that you have the ability to make change here. So those are my policies upon. I can go on and repeat my manifesto again and again, but I think the people who truly care about my policies have asked me already, so.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. All right. So it says here, you talk about violations and mistreatment against students, yet you don't take into account your cola drinking habits.
I mean, I don't think how the two are related in any way or form. Which is actually, I'll just say, because the fact is, the violations and the mistreatment against students is a serious thing on campus. And there are a lot of students that do get mistreated, not only by other students, but by faculty and administration as well. And they're too afraid to speak up about it. So I think it's a very valid policy. And if they have an actual question about it, I'd be more than happy to answer it.
Thank you. So the second question is on a similar note. It says, if a student gets treated unfairly or gets disrespected by a professor, my question to you is, what would you exactly do?
So, so that's a question I'd be expecting. It happened in the debate as well. Kayan asked about this as well. So the mechanism does exist. There is an academic affair committee where the student can go and file a complaint, right? The problem is that the students don't, and you cannot force a student to do so, because you need to put the trust in them that by doing so, you're not jeopardizing your academic career. So this is where, in my opinion, the SGA steps in as a representative body, a true representative body, where if a student is facing an issue and does not want to go and vocalize it themselves, they should have the faith and trust in their student government that if I go speak to this person, he can go and represent on my behalf. So it's not really changing the mechanism. It is sort of more so of enforcing it, using the mechanism that does exist in the first place.
Thank you. The second question says, so when you say you will release the status of votes and voting within SGA, are you not by extension creating more division between students and the SGA themselves?
Not necessarily at all. And that was the point. I'm not here to protect the SGA in the first place. It's a misconception that everyone who's in the SGA should look out for one another. No, the only thing you should be looking out are the student interest, and that's the only thing you need to protect. When an SGA member is voting on an amendment or a bill, it should be with the full consciousness and with the instinct that whatever I'm voting for is in the best interest of the students. So if that is being done, then I don't see any division that's being formed, that if I'm the president, I'm publicizing it. And this is how you create a sense of accountability. Because if an SGA member is voting against the interest of the students and it goes public, you best be assured that the students will hold them accountable. This is a way to create accountability. And this is a standard in pretty much every democracy on the planet. If you elect a congressman in Congress, you do know how they're voting on. And then in the next election, you hold them accountable on it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Will members of the SGA, also students, not be too scared to vote for an SGA decision if you refuse to give them confidentiality?
Well, then that goes back to the same question, that why are they scared in the first place? I mean, you shouldn't be confidential about it. Because you're not representing your own opinion, you're representing the opinion of the people, and you should have full confidence in that. So there is no running from it. You should not vote for it based on your own interest, but the people that you're representing. If someone wants to hide from it, I don't think that they deserve to be in the SGA in the first place, because then they're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not doing the correct representation of the people that they're supposed to represent.
Thank you so much. And then finally, how would you ensure that this works? I'm assuming your manifesto. How will you return trust to SGA?
I think it is a gradual process. It starts with the absolute basics. It starts with very basic things. It starts with visibility. It starts with just genuine conversations. And for me, honestly, for inspiration, I look at Benjamin, because when I was a freshman, he was our president, and it was just sitting in the atrium, and Benjamin would come up and just ask, just a simple conversation. You go out, you see someone, you ask them. It's a genuine way of doing so. You cannot force it. Even though I'm not saying the SGA hasn't tried it, but a lot of, and that was clear in the debate today as well, a lot of the activities that they tried to come up with did come up with forced conversations. You're forcing people to come up and tell me what's wrong. I don't think it works that way. You need to form a genuine trust within the community. And I think that's something I can bring. And that's the reason a lot of people sort of convinced me to run for this presidency. And pretty much the reason a lot of people might vote for me.
Thank you so much for answering all the questions. That's it. All right, everyone. So I have Yousef here with me, Yousef Abdelhady from the class of 2028. And Yousef, we will be doing this the same way that we did in the presidential debates. So I'm going to start off basically asking you the questions, and then I'll give you just 1 minute to answer it. So the question here says, you talk about respect for faith, but really and truly, you are trying to create a campaign that serves and respects Muslims only. According to your 5 points, expand and explain.
Okay, I really respect this concern, and I really appreciate it being addressed. And I would say that my point was fundamentally respect for all religious accommodations, specifically the Islamic prayer, for the reason that I have dealt with it with a faculty member myself. So I believe that this has the priority since it is the most evident, but still, if there's any other problems with any other faith, we will be more than happy as an SGA to deal with it, to address it, to settle it down with the faculty affairs, with the academic affairs, with faculty, with whoever is trying to object against it, and we will make it a legal reality and institutional reality, not just something that is down to the professors.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the next question says, you said that you will bring new initiatives. Please elaborate and give concrete steps that you will be able to ensure it will be applied smoothly.
Okay. First of all, we will be able to build effective communication with the members of the student body, which will be clarifying all the types of narratives that are coming out of the students, and also through my own policies and my own manifestations that I have heard from the feedback across this year that I have been in the campus. And the thing is, I will try and first of all try and address it to the administration in a smart, professional, negotiative manner. And if that fails, we will keep going in different ways. And if that keeps failing, we will rally up even more support from the student body through a questionnaire or some type of system of public support, which will reinforce our stance against whatever administrative barrier we will be facing.
Thank you. The next question says, given your lack of SGA experience, how will you ensure that your presidency, given your lack of SGA experience, how will you address your presidency forward if you win?
Okay. First of all, I would like to really respect and appreciate that statement and that type of compendious objection because I think it is really important to adjust that. And I am really ready to answer that in the sense that we will collaborate with all of the current SGA members that will be around campus. And we will also try and collaborate with the SGA advisors. We will collaborate with other members within the student body. We will collaborate with people who have more experience. And through them and through their advising and through their support, we will be able to navigate things effectively. And also, I will try to work on my own problem solving as we are moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Yousef. And then my next question here. So here it says, this is more of a statement than a comment. So it says Yousef is discriminatory, literally said the N-word before. Why should, for example, the Black student population vote for Yousef?
First of all, I would like to clarify that this statement is not true. No N-word has been said to anyone. This is trying to take things out of context. There is no discrimination. I have a lot of Black friends. This is not true. And we would like to also clarify that myself, as a person who is African, from a country that is geographically African, which is Egypt, I really respect and appreciate African culture, and I was also looking for endorsement and support from the African society as a person who is ready to represent the African culture in its true colors.
Perfect, thank you. Yousef, you talked about the issue of admin restrictions, and the question here asks, basically, how do you ensure that that will be effective? Would it not cause more chaos to go against the administration?
Well, there's a difference between two things. There is a difference between being aggressive and there's a difference between being assertive. There's a difference between you stepping into a conversation, trying to make a concrete point based off your evidence and based off other institutions' practices and based off whatever is happening in the scene and based off the context and the circumstances of the specific thing that you're trying to deal with, and between going there and being disrespectful or being dismissive or being disregarding the other perspective and trying to not address their own concerns and their own side and their own points, whether it's about funding, whether it's about policy, whether it's about clubs, whether it's about whatever. We are going to deal with whatever barriers that we will be facing in all of these perspectives and all of these sides, and they will be addressed in an effective manner.
Thank you. And that is the end of your questions. Thank you so much for joining us today, Yousef. All right, everyone. Now I have with me Ahmed Noeman. And Ahmed, I'll start asking you the questions the same way we did in the presidential debates. So I'll ask the question and then I'll give you a minute to say your essay. All right? The first question says, regarding event fatigue, events are mostly done by administrations and clubs. So how would you make sure that it actually serves the student interest?
Okay. Thank you for your question. I'm aware that we have an event calendar. However, I'm talking more along the lines of intentional programming, not just events that fill our calendars. It was reported to the SLC that there is an issue of over-programming on campus, and students feel that they lost interest in events because of all the events going on. They're competing with each other. However, I would like to introduce a system of streamlining event planning. I don't see why a department should have an event every day, not giving students the space to host their own.
All right. Thank you. The next question says, candidates who are still part of the SGA, what will you do differently this time?
Okay, so I think this touches on the main idea of different approach. Actually, I'm really focusing next year on being approaching rather than just hoping to be approachable. I know that as an SGA, we fear this year coming off as being pushy or bothering people with constant questions, feedback, and such things because of the fact that we know GQ students are just so busy. However, I'll definitely take an approach that is more approaching and not just waiting for people to come and approach me.
Thank you. All right. The next question says, you said we chose you ourselves. We made a mistake. Tell us why we should choose you again. Then as you couldn't answer to the simple question, why should we trust you?
Okay, so this revolves around the idea of trust. I'm aware that this trust comes from the amendment that I was second in command as we passed the amendment, but I would like just put out there that me and Nagla were kept ourselves last in voting to ensure that we don't influence votes of the other members, especially the reps. And I was also the same vice president that spent time to table and hear you out, and the same vice president who worked on ensuring we get the referendum, and the same vice president that voted in voter of passing the referendum even though it didn't meet the threshold. I'll work on reestablishing trust by ensuring absolute transparency, which is also my first point in my statement, to ensure you all listen to through constant presence.
Thank you. All right. Our last question, I think, is very similar to what you already answered. It just asks, there's already a calendar system in place through the events department. It's more of a comment than a question. So I guess here, how is your plan different from the calendar that already exists?
Okay. I answered this question though. But
Yeah,
again,
so I said it's similar.
okay. So like I mentioned before, I'm aware that there is an event calendar. However, I'm talking more along the lines of intentional programming, not just events that fill our calendars. And also I mentioned the point that was reported to the SLC that there was an issue of over-programming on campus and students feel like they lost interest in events because of all the competing events. Therefore, I would like to start up a system that voice the interest of the student body in order to have fruitful events that actually match their interests, as I don't see why a department should have an event every day and not giving a chance to the students to host their own.
Thank you. Thank you, Ahmed. That was all from the questions of the student body. Thank you to all the candidates who took part in answering the questions.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of GQ Speaks. We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspirations from our conversation today. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to follow us on our Instagram page at GQ_speaks, and be sure to leave a review on Spotify to show your support.